Why does she still have power over you? Months have passed, maybe years. She's gone, moved on, living her life while you're still replaying conversations in your head at 3 in the morning. Still feeling that sharp pain when something reminds you of her. Still organizing your life around avoiding the places she might be. Still checking her social media even though you know it's poisoned. You thought time would heal this. Everyone said it would. But the wound keeps bleeding because you never understood what actually happened. You interpreted her leaving as evidence of your inadequacy. Her betrayal as proof of your worthlessness. Her choice as a verdict on your value. And as long as you believe that story, she'll keep hurting you from a distance. By the end of this video, you'll understand what Friedrich Nietzsche discovered about emotional suffering and why most men remain trapped in pain long after the woman is gone. You'll learn the exact shift in perspective that makes you immune to female-inflicted suffering. And you'll know how to reclaim the power you've been given away without realizing it. But here's what you need to grasp first. She's not still hurting you. You're still hurting yourself. And to understand why that matters, we first need to look at what Nietzsche called the greatest source of unnecessary human suffering. Nietzsche spent his life studying why people suffer more than they need to, why humans can endure enormous physical pain but collapse under psychological pain that has no physical basis. And what he discovered was radical. Most suffering doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from the meaning you assign to what happens. When she left, when she betrayed you, when she chose someone else, an event occurred. That's all. A woman made a choice. But you didn't just experience the event, you interpreted it. You created a story about what it meant. And that story, not the event itself, is what's destroying you. You told yourself it meant you weren't good enough, that you failed as a man, that something fundamental is broken in you, that you'll never be chosen, never be valued, never be loved. And every time you replay these interpretations, you recreate the wound. She hurt you once, but you've been hurting yourself thousands of times since. Nietzsche called this the spirit of revenge. Not revenge against her, but revenge against yourself. You're punishing yourself for failing to keep her. You're attacking your own worth because she didn't see it. You're carrying out a sentence she never imposed, just one you've been enforcing internally. But here's what most men never realize. Her choice says nothing about your objective value. It reveals her preferences, her patterns, her own psychological makeup. A woman who leaves you for another man isn't delivering a verdict on your worth. She's exposing what she responds to, what she's attracted to, what her biology and psychology prioritize. And often, what women prioritize has nothing to do with actual quality. Nietzsche observed that women are attracted to specific traits, dominance, volatility, emotional unavailability, that don't correlate with character, compatibility, or long-term relationship success. They're drawn to genetic markers and psychological patterns that trigger their biology, even when those patterns will ultimately make them miserable. So when she chose someone else, when she left, when she betrayed you, all that happened is her programming responded to different stimuli than you provided, nothing more. But you've been treating it like cosmic judgment when it's just biological preference. To become immune to female-inflicted pain, you need to understand something deeper, something about the nature of suffering itself, and that's what we need to explore next. Nietzsche's most famous insight was this: he who has a why to live can bear almost any how, but the inverse is equally true. He who assigns the wrong meaning to suffering will be destroyed by events that should merely be difficult. When she hurt you, you could have interpreted it 100 different ways. You could have seen it as incompatibility, as her loss, as freedom from a relationship that wasn't working, as information about her character, as a necessary redirection toward something better. But instead, most men default to the interpretation that causes maximum suffering. They make it mean something about their fundamental inadequacy. And this interpretation is what Nietzsche would call slave morality. A framework where your worth is determined by external validation, where another person's choice can diminish you, where you're perpetually at the mercy of others' opinions. The man operating from slave morality gives away his power constantly. When she approves of him, he feels valuable. When she withdraws approval, he feels worthless. His entire sense of self is outsourced to her perception. And this makes him not just vulnerable, but pathetic in Nietzsche's eyes. Because here's the truth that most men can't face. You're not hurt because of what she did. You're hurt because you believed your worth depended on her choosing you. You built your entire identity on being wanted by her. And when she withdrew that want, your identity collapsed. This is why no contact doesn't work for most men. They cut off communication thinking distance will heal them. But the wound isn't maintained by her presence. It's maintained by the story they keep telling themselves about what her absence means. You can block her on everything, move to a different city, never see her again. But if you're still believing that her leaving proved you weren't enough, you're still bleeding. The pain isn't coming from her. It's coming from your interpretation of the event. And that interpretation is always available to torture you regardless of physical distance. Nietzsche would ask you, why are you giving her this power? Why are you allowing another human, flawed and operating from unconscious drives she doesn't even understand, to determine your value? Why are you treating her choice as more significant than your own assessment of yourself? The answer is usually because you never developed your own assessment. You never built an internal foundation of worth that exists independent of external validation. You've been operating your entire life from the belief that value comes from being chosen by women, by employers, by friends, by society. And as long as you believe this, you'll never be free from suffering, because there will always be someone who doesn't choose you. There will always be rejection. There will always be loss. And each one will feel like death because you've made external validation the source of your existence. But here's what changes everything. Nietzsche believed that suffering only destroys the weak. For the strong, suffering becomes raw material for transformation. The same event that breaks one man makes another man unbreakable. The difference isn't the event, it's how the man relates to it. When you understand that her leaving revealed nothing about your worth, only about her preferences, something shifts. When you realize that her betrayal exposed her character, not yours, the pain begins to lose its grip. When you see that her choice was simply biology and psychology playing out unconsciously, you stop taking it personally. But this intellectual understanding isn't enough. You need to do something most men never do. You need to reinterpret the entire experience, and that's what we need to explore next. Nietzsche believed in what he called the revaluation of all values, the practice of examining every belief you hold and consciously choosing whether to keep it or reject it. Most people inherit their values, their interpretations, their meanings from culture. They never question them, and this makes them slaves to inherited suffering. So let's revalue what happened. Let's look at the story you've been telling yourself and consciously choose a different interpretation, not as denial or cope, but as a more accurate reading of reality. Story you've been telling. She left because I wasn't good enough. Revaluation. She left because her unconscious patterns responded to different traits than I embody. This reveals her programming, not my inadequacy. Do you see the shift? The event is the same, but the meaning changes everything. In the first story, you're the problem. In the second, you're simply incompatible with her particular psychology. Neither of you is broken. You just don't fit. Story you've been telling. Her betrayal proves I'm not valuable. Revaluation. Her betrayal proves she lacks the character I require in a partner. I've been saved from building a life with someone fundamentally dishonest. Again, same event, completely different meaning. And this meaning doesn't just reduce pain, it actually transforms the experience into something useful. You didn't lose something valuable. You were given information that prevents a worse outcome. Story you've been telling. I'll never find anyone better. Revaluation. I've now experienced what doesn't work. This increases my ability to recognize compatibility when I encounter it. Nietzsche was adamant that experience, especially painful experience, is the raw material for wisdom, but only if you interpret it correctly. The man who sees rejection as evidence of inadequacy becomes more desperate, more needy, more likely to repeat the same patterns. But the man who sees rejection as information becomes more discerning, more selective, more likely to eventually find genuine compatibility. This reinterpretation isn't about lying to yourself. It's about refusing to accept the most painful story when more accurate interpretations exist. Your brain defaults to self-blame because that's how it's been conditioned. But you can consciously override this default. Every time the pain resurfaces, every time you catch yourself in the old story, consciously reframe. She didn't reject my worth. She revealed her preferences. Say it aloud if necessary. Write it down. Repeat it until the new interpretation becomes automatic. Nietzsche called this amor fati, love of fate, not passive acceptance, but active embrace of what happened, because you can extract value from it. You don't wish it didn't happen. You transform it into something that makes you stronger. The man who masters this becomes immune to female-inflicted pain, not because women can't hurt him, but because he refuses to interpret their actions as judgments on his worth. They make choices. He observes those choices. He extracts information. He adjusts accordingly. But he never gives them the power to define his value. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming beyond good and evil. Not evil in the moral sense, but beyond the framework where external events determine your internal state. You become the one who assigns meaning, and when you control the meaning, you control the suffering. But intellectual reframing isn't enough. There's a deeper practice required, and that's what we need to address next. Nietzsche understood that you can't just reinterpret pain away. You need to build something beneath the interpretation. A foundation of worth that exists independent of any woman's perception. This is what he called self-overcoming. The process of becoming someone whose value is self-evident, requiring no external confirmation. Most men never do this work. They build their entire sense of worth on external achievements, career success, physical appearance, sexual conquests, social status. And these things feel like foundations until a woman they care about withdraws approval. Then they discover they never had a foundation at all. Just a stack of external validations that collapse the moment someone important stops providing them. Real foundation is internal. It's built from principles you live by regardless of outcome, from standards you maintain regardless of who's watching, from integrity that exists whether or not anyone recognizes it. This is what makes you unshakable. Nietzsche would ask, what do you value independent of female approval? What standards do you hold for yourself that have nothing to do with being chosen? What kind of man are you committed to becoming, regardless of whether women appreciate it? Most men have never answered these questions. Their entire life has been organized around attracting and keeping women. So when a woman leaves, they lose not just the relationship, but their entire sense of direction. Because being chosen was the goal, and now the goal is gone. But the man who's built internal foundation doesn't collapse when she leaves. He's disappointed. He feels the loss. But he doesn't question his fundamental worth because his worth isn't based on her choice. It's based on whether he's living according to his own standards. And those standards don't change based on her absence. This requires brutal honesty. You need to identify what you actually value, not what you think you should value, not what impresses others. What actually matters to you? What kind of man do you want to be? What principles are non-negotiable regardless of cost? For Nietzsche, these values often centered on strength, creativity, authenticity, courage, excellence. But your values might be different. The content matters less than the fact that they're genuinely yours and maintained regardless of external validation. Once you identify these values, you build your life around them. Every decision, every action, every moment becomes an expression of these principles. You're no longer reacting to circumstances or seeking approval. You're creating a life according to internal standards. And here's what happens. Women still might hurt you. They might leave, betray, disappoint. But these events no longer destroy you because they don't touch your foundation. You're standing on something they didn't create and can't remove. You can acknowledge the pain without being defined by it. You can feel the loss without questioning your worth. You can grieve what ended without believing it means something catastrophic about who you are. This is immunity, not the inability to feel pain, but the inability to be destroyed by it. Not the absence of hurt, but the presence of something stronger than hurt. A foundation built from self-knowledge, maintained through integrity, proven through action. Nietzsche believed this kind of strength was rare because most people never question the external validation framework they inherited. But those who do, who build internal foundations, become something most men never touch: sovereign. But there's one final element required for complete immunity, and it's the most difficult. The ultimate immunity from female-inflicted pain comes from embracing what Nietzsche called eternal recurrence. The thought experiment that asks, if you had to live your entire life again, exactly as it happened, including every pain, every betrayal, every loss, would you say yes? Most people would say no. They're haunted by regret, tortured by what they wish had been different, still resenting people who hurt them, still wishing they made different choices. This resentment keeps them trapped in the past, perpetually at war with what already happened. But Nietzsche argued that the strong man, the sovereign man, the free man, would say yes without hesitation. Not because his life was painless, but because he's extracted value from every experience, including the ones that hurt most. When she hurt you, when she left, when she betrayed you, you were given something invaluable. Evidence of incompatibility before you wasted more time. Information about her character you wouldn't have discovered otherwise. An opportunity to discover your own strength by surviving what you thought would destroy you. If you can look at that pain and genuinely say, I wouldn't change it, you've achieved immunity, because you're no longer fighting reality. You're no longer wishing it had been different. You've accepted what happened, extracted its value, and used it to become stronger. This is amor fati taken to its ultimate conclusion. Not just accepting what happened, but loving it, being grateful for it, recognizing that without that specific pain, you wouldn't be who you are now. And who you are now is someone who can't be broken by what broke you before. But here's the practice that makes this real. Every time you think of her, every time the pain resurfaces, ask yourself, what did this teach me that I needed to learn? Not what you wish you'd learned differently, but what you actually learned. What weakness did it expose that you've now strengthened? What pattern did it reveal that you've now corrected? What illusion did it shatter that was keeping you blind? Transform the pain into education, the betrayal into wisdom, the loss into liberation. This isn't denying what happened, it's refusing to remain its victim. Nietzsche believed that suffering is inevitable, but remaining wounded is optional. The strong man uses suffering as raw material for transformation. He emerges from pain more discerning, more boundaried, more conscious of what he'll tolerate and what he won't. And when you've done this, when you've genuinely transformed the pain into power, something remarkable happens. You stop thinking about her. Not because you're forcing yourself not to, but because she's no longer relevant. The story is complete, the lesson is learned, the transformation is finished. She becomes just another person you knew once, not the woman who destroyed you, but the woman who inadvertently revealed what you needed to see, not the source of your pain, but the catalyst for your growth. This is when you know you're free, when her name doesn't create a reaction, when memories don't sting, when you can wish her well genuinely because you recognize that her leaving was the best thing that could have happened for your evolution. No woman will ever hurt you again. Not because you've become cold or closed off, but because you've built something they can't touch. Internal sovereignty, self-determined worth, the immunity that comes from knowing that nothing anyone does can diminish what you've become. If you've done this work, write in the comments, "I am sovereign." The pain was initiation. You've passed through it. You're free.